like, there we go, middle school through like high school kind of robot. But the reality is, it programs the exact same way Bolt and Bolt Plus do. So because of that, really, you can take this down to upper elementary and bring it up from there. It's just very, very capable robot. So let's explore a little bit about what it is, what it does, and then we'll actually get to program this thing. So if you have it with you, awesome. I know I'm on the East Coast as well. I live in Pennsylvania. So I understand we've all had a little bit of weather here, a little bit. I know I probably got the least of it compared to some of you south of me here, which is unusual for our storms here on the East Coast. But some of the things we're going to look at tonight, we're going to look at what Rover or Rover Plus is, what is, how we can use block programming to get it moving. What are some of the things we can go beyond block programming later? We're going to look at synchronous versus asynchronous programming, what that means. We're going to use lights and sounds. We'll probably take a look at a program called Sphero here to work our way through some content. And if we have enough time, we'll look at using the color sensor that's on the bottom of the robot to program using color. So, let's see if my file, there we go. It still loads. All right, perfect. So this gives you an idea of like age range of what we at Sphero say. It's kind of like 7 through 12. But like I said, the reality is, since it programs the same way of Bolt or Bolt Plus, you can take this all the way down to third grade if you wanted to. You do have to use our software to use Rover Plus. So you're going to have to use Sphero EDU in some way, shape, or form. So if you haven't and have the ability, please do download the app to a programming device. Our app, which is called Sphero EDU, works on almost any platform. It works on iOS, Android, which will include Chromebooks for you. It'll also work on Fire OS. So if you have a Fire tablet, it'll work there. It also works on Windows and Mac computers. And we just released recently, it came out of beta now and is an official release for us. We have a web programming experience now that runs right inside of a browser. One thing I want to mention about that is it is not designed for mobile devices. So if you're using any iOS device or like an Android tablet, you're going to want to download and install the app. And the reason being is iOS in particular blocks what's called WebBLE, Web Bluetooth. It's the ability to connect to a Bluetooth device within the web browser. So iOS will block that, so you can't use a mobile Apple device for that. And the driving controls on any mobile device are based on a keyboard, not a touch screen. So just something to throw out there. Some of the cool new additions to Rover Plus, if any of you have been around Sphero for a while, you may be familiar with the original Rover or RVR. And uh, if you've ever experienced the original, it's really fast. It goes across the classroom at a crazy speed, which is really fun. The kids love it, but maybe not the greatest when it comes to that educational space. And we're trying not to run it into all kinds of things, and we're trying to be productive. So RVR Plus, which is what you have received through this program, RVR Plus, we've slowed it down. So essentially, we've cut that speed in half, which very closely in math doubles the torque, and it gives it a better payload ability. We also learned a lot when we created Indy, which is our elementary robot, with the color sensor. So we actually really, really love the color sensor that was in Indy. So we use that exact same hardware in Rover Plus, which is really awesome that they kind of share some components. So if any students, start with Indy in those elementary grades and then work their way up into Rover Plus, they're actually using some of the same components under the hood, which is really pretty cool. So some of those key features that are under, all this fun plastic that's in there, right? We have something called a 6-axis IMU, and that IMU, what that stands for is inertial measurement unit, and it's a sensor that basically tells the robot where it is in space. So it can detect all kinds of things like its movement, how far it's traveled, its acceleration. So we can read an accelerometer in there. We can read the orientation as far as the three different axes with pitch, roll, and yaw. So if you think about an airplane, how they move, we can do all those same things. It also knows how far it traveled because it's a tracked vehicle. It's actually really, really accurate in being able to drive specific distances. I mentioned the color sensor, which we'll get a little more into hopefully today. If not, if you're joining us for the second RVR more in-depth session, we'll definitely talk more about it in there. As well as in that later session, we will look at some of the other sensors like the ambient light sensor. So RVR can actually look at the amount of light that's in the room, the luminosity, and you can code based on what that sensor sees. RVR Plus also has some infrared sensors. So if you're familiar with Bolt or now Bolt Plus, they have the same infrared sensors in there, so they can actually communicate with each other. So if you were to get multiple RVR pluses in the same room, they can send messages to each other, and then you can code based on those messages. The really cool thing about that is not only can you communicate between the RVR pluses, but you can also communicate between an RVR, an RVR plus, an RVR plus, and a Bolt plus. They can all communicate with each other because they all use those same set of sensors for infrared. It is ready out of the box. The only thing you need to do is charge that battery and put it into the robot. Those batteries are removable and you can swap them out with it. So they are pretty easy. They do charge USB-C. If you haven't gotten yours out of the box yet, you'll want to charge that battery USB-C. They do last a very long time. I'm unsure how long ago it's been since I've charged my RVR Plus that's sitting on the table, but it's still reading 3 out of 4 percent or bars on the battery. So it's about 75% charged. And it's been a long time since I've charged that thing. So it does last quite a long time. There are removable developer plates and blueprint plates that are on the top of this. And right on the top of that robot, we can see this is what it looks like under the hood if you don't have any of those plates on it. So we can see our battery, the red things here are gearboxes. We can see all of the electronics that are in there, which is really cool in itself that students get to see those things. When you lift this little cover, we have 2 ports here. We have a USB-A port as well as something called a UART port. And what this allows us to do is to bring signals in and out of RVR Plus. So we can plug in third-party hardware to this and then program on that third-party hardware to control this. You can also power other things. So if you are familiar with our Little Bits product at all, you can build Little Bits circuits on the top of this and power it right from here without needing another power supply. That's also true with Microbit and Raspberry Pi. These plates that are there, your kit should have come with one blueprint plate like this and another developer plate, which has all kinds of different holes and slots on it for you to be able to attach inventions to and build off of, which is really pretty cool. The blueprint plate actually interfaces with our blueprint products. So our blueprint products are a trust-based system. They use these little connectors. Cool part is you can take those connectors, they snap right into here, and now you can build off of this platform. So you can build all kinds of really cool things. One of the Like one of our challenge cards here is to build a trailer, right? So students can build and design their own trailer here out of blueprint parts, and now they can, add payload off of RVR for that to pull around, which is really pretty cool to just be able to snap things in place and ready to go. You can pull those off of there. If you need to pull it apart, you can always take a shaft or the removal tool and pop these connectors out of here, and you're back to that blank plate. If you don't have blueprint or anything like that, no big deal. It is not necessary for anything we will do in our sessions. I'm just throwing it out there that you do have options to build on top of this thing. So those are our plates that are there. I mentioned about the removable and rechargeable battery, as well as those ports. Do note that if you're going to go really far with this and you're going to start using that USB-A port, it is limited to 2.1 amps. Okay, that's a lot of power for something on board a robot like that. So it's very, very versatile. But if you're doing something like a Raspberry Pi on top of here, a Raspberry Pi can be pretty power hungry. So that Raspberry Pi will work really well, but it does have its limits in power consumption. And on that note, if you are using any of those third-party things, we do have a public SDK, a software development kit, where it walks you through the process of adding those third-party things like the microbit. Cool part about the microbit is you can plug a microbit in USB into this and go into make code if you're familiar with using a microbit at all. It's programmed using make code. You go in there, you can click on extensions, type in RVR, it will show up with that extension, and now you can have some basic control over your RVR right from make code. If you decide I want to go way further, I really want to get into the weeds of this thing, you can plug in a Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi can be powered using that USB port. If you're putting a lot of motors and things in your build, you might need a secondary power supply that you can mount onto here, just because of the extra power needs that might be there. With Raspberry Pi, cool part there is that SDK walks you through everything from how to format your Raspberry Pi, how to install the software. We have a software image for you. And now that opens up the ability to use Python to program this. We, just FYI, we don't sell any of those third-party things. We just support them here with our software development. All right, so that's what this thing is capable of. Let's get into the programming parts of this. So it doesn't matter if you're going to use our app installed on a device or if you're going to use the web app, but we are going to create a program. So I'm going to walk you through how to access those things just in case you haven't installed anything yet. So when we will go to edu.sphero. I'm having a hard time typing this evening. There we go. edu.sphero.com. And this will bring you to a page called Sphero Central. Sphero Central is our one-stop shop for all things Sphero content. So this page, and I saw this is what Alexis had linked under all the products there. So you also have this link here, or you can type it in edu.sphero.com, and it will drop you to this page. Do note that there is a sign-in button here. That doesn't mean you have to sign into this system. This is all free content that's on here. So if you choose to do this accountless, you can totally do that. Don't think the first thing you have to do is sign up for an account. Everything you do tonight, you can do without an account, no problem. Up at the top, we have all of our different products. So notice it says Bolt Plus, Rover Plus, and Mini in here. It's all of our programmable Sphero ED robots are in this category. but there are categories for blueprint, indie, and little bits as well. We're going to spend our evening tonight under the Bolt Plus Rover Plus Mini tab. When we go to that page, there are two links down here. One is open the web app, and one is download our app. So we can do two things here, and it just totally depends on what what your particular setup is as far as devices. If you would like to do this right from your computer, hit that web app button. It will open up your programming experience here and get you ready to go. If you would rather download the app, you can hit download app and get you going that way. I will kind of bounce between the two so everybody can see things. They look very, very similar. They're not perfectly identical just because of one is running inside of a web browser, but they have almost identical capabilities with that. So you're not missing something by using one over the other. It's whatever works best for you in this situation. So we can jump into there. Also note while you're working on either downloading that app or opening the web app here, we do have tabs for lessons and resources here. So when we go to lessons, you can filter by robot, and we have collections of different lessons here based on the robot. We also, when we go to Sphero lessons, there are way, way more Sphero lessons besides what's in the collections. So don't limit yourself to just what's in the collections. There are a lot of different programs in here, and you can go through many, many pages of Rover content here. Some are just to help you get started. Some are way more advanced. Some require blueprint, some don't. Some require microbit, some don't. So you can certainly kind of surf through these and see all kinds of things. We also do allow our community users to publish their own lessons as well. So these are lessons from all around the world. Sphero users can say, hey, I have a really cool lesson that I do. I want to share this with every Sphero user, and that's what the community lessons are. The community lessons are moderated in the fact that we check them to make sure that they are school appropriate. Other than that, we do not go through and edit them or anything like that. They are that person's creation. I can tell you one of the really cool ones that if I remember correctly, this person that published this one was from Germany, but they're using something called an April tag. And if you've ever dove into FIRST robotics, which is much higher level, April tags are all over the course for that. And they're using an AI based camera to read those April tags to turn Rover into this self-driving vehicle. So you can do some really, really cool things. This is like way advanced kind of stuff, but there's tons and tons of cool things out there. So, as you're kind of getting your foot in the door and used to this, definitely dive into the content a little bit so you can see what's out there because there's lots of cool things. We're going to stick with some of our content here that's Sphero based this evening. So, as we are creating our program, you're going to tap on that bluish green plus button and you can name your program. I highly recommend that you instill that in your students. It's just good file management technique. At a trade show one time, I signed all of our sales staff into my account because they wanted to highlight something that only lived in my account at the time. And I made the mistake of signing, like 8 or 9 salespeople into my account. So I always say that students and Sphero salespeople will not name their programs, and you will end up with Untitled Program 1, Untitled Program 2 throughout their accounts, right? That's just what happens. I spend about a good hour and a half to 2 hours cleaning out my account after that trade show because no one named any of their demos that they did that was there. So I probably missed out on some good content that they had created throughout that show, but I just didn't have the time to go through all of their programs. We want our students to not suffer that same fate. We want them to have all of their programs that they've created before. Then we're going to choose the type of program. It's going to be draw, block, or text-based program. You will not see the option for virtual bot anymore. Unfortunately, that was eliminated in our last update. So that was kind of a holdover from the COVID era, and that is now gone. So if you're seeing that on my screen, it's no longer an option, unfortunately. So tonight we're going to do block-based coding. And you're going to want to choose the robot you're working with, which is going to be RVR or RVR plus. They both function the same way. They code the exact same way. I know it says choose compatible robots. Please make sure you're only choosing the robot you're going to program when you do this. The reason is Bolt and Rover are very different robots. They also do they have different code blocks that are there based on their features. So you don't want to choose a robot that's not the one you're actually going to connect to because you're going to be missing blocks. There's going to be blocks there that you can't use. So make sure you choose RVR, RVR plus. You'll hit that create button and that will get us started with our programming experience. No matter what platform you're on, it will look very, very similar. If it doesn't look identical, it's probably the difference between the web app and just the application itself. So don't worry if it's slightly different. They all have that same capability. So I have created my block code and we're ready to go. Couple notes about block coding. All of our blocks are color coded. They're color coded by category. So working with students long enough, you'll figure it out that students love to code things in the most abstract way possible, right? That's just what students do. So because of that, we need to be able to kind of adapt and figure out what they're doing there. So you'll eventually have a point where you look at a student's programming device because they're like, hey, I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know why this works or doesn't work for that matter. Can you help me? And you're going to look at that code and you're going to go, I've never seen that block in my life. I have no idea where that thing even came from. I'll answer half that question for you right now. Look at the color of the block. Find that color in the categories that are across the bottom of the programming experience of that canvas. And once you find that color, that's where that block lives. All right. The other thing I'd like to point out here is there's just a lot of blocks in Sphero EDU. Do not think that you need to know every single block that is in this program. I use this program nearly every day of my life, and there are blocks that I still have not used in Sphero EDU. So do not torture yourself of like, I need a list of these. I need to know what every single block does. That's just not necessary to do that to yourself. We do have a block canvas help that you can get to. In the upper right corner of your coding experience, you have that overflow menu. It's the 3 dots that are there. And you can click on that, and there's a bunch of things that are up there for you for resources. It doesn't show in this screenshot on this slide, but there is a little button in your coding canvas if you've recently downloaded our software with these arrows here. I don't know how many people have ever opened up a new program and in any software and we're like, wow, there's a lot of buttons in here and are just overwhelmed. We didn't want our students or our educators to feel that way. So we condensed our code categories to the most commonly used blocks. And we did not eliminate any any other code blocks. They're all still there. If you're looking for a block and it's not there, hit those little arrows that will expand. You'll be able to find the blocks you need. And if you don't want to be overwhelmed, you can certainly click again to collapse it, and you're good to go. All right, we're going to start out with a roll block to get us started. So I'm going to jump over. I'm going to be programming from my iPad to get us started. But like I said, I will jump back and forth with this. If you don't have your robot because it's still at school and you haven't been there, you've been snowed in for a couple days, don't panic. Still go with us, along with us here tonight with the coding experience. Once you get your hands on your robot, you can connect to your robot and give this a shot. And you have my email address to reach out if something doesn't work quite right and you can't figure it out. Reach out and I'll help you out.
Oh, hello,
So,
Brad.
sure.
This is Activia. Did you show a part of how to put the battery
Oh,
there?
yeah, absolutely.
Did I miss that?
Yeah.
I tried to open it. I mean, it's charged, but I didn't. Yeah. Can you help me?
Yep. So right here,
Okay.
when you're looking at the top of the robot, the red button that's here, that is the front of the robot. You'll see there's headlights there. That's the front. So we're looking at the left side of the robot here. And in your kit, you should have seen a little red key in there. And this is your battery key. You can insert that into here, give it a 90-degree turn, and then that battery door will open. From here, I'm gonna pop my battery out. It should look like that. You can take your battery. If you need to charge it, it charges USB-C, it's there. Anytime you want to check the charge of your robot, you can just press the button here. It will light up those LEDs. We can see what those things look like here. You can see what the charge state is. The LEDs are facing up or out. And just take that battery, slide it in, and push until it clicks. You'll see this little red tab kind of popped up. Now that battery's in place, so like if for some reason the door wasn't locked, the battery's not coming out of here. It's still in there. So to get the battery out, when you're ready to take it out, just press on that button. You might have to give the robot a little flip and shake. This robot itself, you'll see there's a little Sphero sticker on the bottom of it, because I have it marked, because this is my prototype one when we were developing this. And it was the one that I did my best to break. And I was unsuccessful at that because it's still here and it's still kicking and working for me. So snap that battery in, close the door, take the key, and you can give it a turn there. If for some reason at any point in time you lose the key, don't panic. You can use a straight screwdriver or a coin to do that, to open it up. We do caution you to be careful. We made these plastic for a reason. If you're using something metal here and you're not like in the slot like 100% correctly, like if you're at an angle or anything like that, it can wear on this. So you do want to make sure that whatever you're using is fully engaged in there to turn that, so you don't strip out the battery door. But great question.
Thank you. And I have one more. What you saying about the key? Because we have several robots. Can we use that same key?
Yeah.
Or has to? Okay. All right.
Yep. They're all the exact same key. What I do, like, I don't know if anyone is going to FETC next week, but if anyone's going to FETC next week, if you catch me early in the morning, I'll probably be wearing a lanyard besides my name badge, and it'll have a bunch of keys on it as well as an RVR key. I keep it on my my lanyard, my key ring, my ID, so that I can use it for that. Throw it on a key ring, throw it on an extra lanyard that might be floating around your classroom, hang it on the wall. That way you have it, and you're ready to go. And one key will operate all RVRs. All right, so let's take a look at programming. Notice I'm not connected to my robot yet. It's okay, you can connect at any point in time with that. I'll demo the connection part of this in just a moment. So I'm going to go under my movements category and I'm going to drag a roll block up here. There's actually two different roll blocks when you're using RVR. And the first one is our standard roll block. If you're familiar with other Sphero products like our round robot series, which is like Bolt, and our newest is Bolt Plus, or any of our round robots, this is the traditional roll block that we've used. It has three parameters to it. The first one is the heading, and the heading is the direction that the robot is going to move, right? So it goes from 0 to 359 degrees, and it tells the robot what direction we want it to travel. The next parameter is speed, and this is how fast the robot is going to go. It goes from 0 to 255. And the question I get here often is, why isn't it 0 to 100? Well, 0 to 255 is 256 individual increments of speed. And 256 is a significant number in programming. If you're unsure why, it has to do with bits and bytes. It's a great Google search on a night that you just can't fall asleep. It'll help you out. You'll be asleep in moments. Great read. And go through that. But it is a significant number in programming. So because of that, we try to use 256 in our programming canvas. And I said it goes 0 to 255, but technically, if I go backward, it goes negative 255 to positive 255 because I could go forward or backward. If you're like most of our students and you crank this thing all the way up, it is going to move pretty quickly. I know I mentioned that we slowed it down to half the speed. When you have a little bit of space in your classroom or at home, wherever you have your robot, crank it up and see what it does, right? Give yourself a little bit of room, set it for a short amount of time, and get it to 255 and see what happens, right? It still moves pretty quickly. So I always tell my students, like, pick a moderate speed, right? The one thing about this is it is a track-driven vehicle, so you don't have to worry about it sliding around much unless you put it out on the ice that we might have all just gotten here. Once you put it on the ice, it's going to have a ton of grip and it's going to work really pretty well. The last parameter is how long that we want the robot to drive in that direction at that speed. Those two things combined, the speed and the duration, equate to a distance, right? So you can do a lot of experimentation to figure out what those are. Or you can look at the other type of roll block here, that second one I just brought on the screen, allows us to drive for a specific distance measured in centimeters. So because of that, we can just say, I want to go 50 centimeters or whatever my distance is. Tonight I'm working from the top of my desk. So I'm going to keep this, relatively short distance. I'm going to say I want to go 25 centimeters and I would like to do that at a speed of, let's say, I'm gonna go nice and slow. I'm gonna say 40. So now when I'm ready to execute my program, I need to get connected. So before I do this, I'm gonna get rid of my first roll block because I only want to drive one time. Up at the top right, we have the connect. And right now you can see my particular device is looking for Bolt Plus. If that happens to you, if it's looking for a different kind of robot, just hit the back button there and choose RVR, RVR Plus. You'll notice I'm not finding anything. That's because my RVR Plus is not turned on. I'm going to turn it on. It shows up nearly instantly. I can click on it and it is going to connect to my robot. So it does take a few seconds because it is negotiating via Bluetooth to pair to that robot for you. And once it is connected, you'll be able to execute this program. You may notice that the lights are cycling and things like that on your robot. So we can see here on my robot, I have some lights. They're going between blue and purple. and I am now connected to my robot. Once I'm connected, it's going to bounce me right back here to my programming screen. If I go back up to that connect menu, it is going to show me what my robot ID is. If you're looking for that robot ID on the actual robot, it is right here just above the color sensor. So we can see that ID matches the ID that is listed here. So this is really helpful when you're actually trying to, have multiple students connect to their robots in the classroom at the same time. They can look at the bottom, see the ID. That's the ID they click on. That way they're not accidentally connected to someone else's. If they're ever confused by that and don't want to pick it up, you can hit Find My Robot. It's going to cycle through these colors, and it'll do that same thing here. It'll cycle through all those colors for us. So that's all working. To cycle through those things, we can see it's changing colors here, but it's also showing that changing color here. All right, so let's actually get this thing moving. So I'm going to take my robot, I'm going to set it over here on my desk, and I'm going to make sure that the front of the robot, where the red button is facing the direction I want 0 degrees to be. All right, this is aiming our robot. Yes, in the software up here, there is an aim button, and you can go in there and manually do this, but you don't need to do that because you can actually just set it in the direction you want it to be and hit start. So at this point, I'm going to hit that big green start button at the top of this program, and we are going to see my robot travel across my desk here. So there we go. We moved hopefully about 25 centimeters. So let's take a look here. My sensors are saying I moved 26.1 centimeters. I can say I haven't used my rover for a couple weeks now, so you might have heard my treads make a little bit of noise there, right? It's pretty simple to do that. They're probably just a little stiff because they've been sitting around a lot, kind of like me over the break, right? So I can sympathize with you, Rover. So if I take this thing and I push it along, notice that my distance is changing there. If I rotate this thing and push it, all those sensors that are packed in the side of this thing are reading all the movements. And literally what I did there was I took my rover and I kind of pushed it and moved it. And now we can see what that looks like with the sensor data here. It knows what the robot is doing. I mentioned the orientation of those 3 axes. So we have pitch, roll, and yaw, right? Think of those as an airplane. So you're taking off, the nose pitches up. When you're turning, right, it rolls side to side. And the scary one, when you're coming in for a landing and you get that like crosswind and the plane kind of goes a little sideways, right? That's yaw. So we can see those. We can see all of our gyroscope, which is measured in degrees per second. We can see the accelerometer measured in g-force. So I just picked up RVR and gave it a good shake. So we can see that in those axes as well. We can see its velocity and how it's moving, the distance it has moved in each axis, as well as the ambient light. So it's the amount of light in the room. You probably just saw my graph kind of did a nosedive there. I just put my hand over the top of RVR. If I take it away, it spikes, it goes way up, right? And we're measuring that measurement in what's called lux, right? Or luminosity. And of course, we can see color sensor values there. So whatever the color sensor is seeing, I have a piece of yellow paper I'm going to slide under here. And now you can see that how that changes from my kind of black carbon fiber looking desk. When I slide that yellow in there, and how it changes that graph. So we can see all of that data, but that data is also recorded in the app. So when I stop my program, if I go up to that menu, I can click on sensor data. It will show me all that data still. And you can hit download CSV and it'll download it as a CSV file, which is a spreadsheet. And you can open that in, Google Sheets or Excel or Numbers, whatever program you're using on whatever platform, and you can see all of that data. So that was some basics. We're going to take a couple minutes here, and I'm going to give you a challenge. I would like you to program a square. And I don't care if you use a traditional roll block or a roll to distance block where you actually specify the distance. One of the great advantages of using RVR versus our older bolt robot is that you can do the drive to distance or the roll to distance block. So go ahead. I'm going to give you just a few minutes. Go ahead and program your robots to do a square. Again, if you don't have a robot in front of you, don't panic. Still write your program, and then you can test it later. So go ahead. I'm going to give you all just a few minutes to do that. And while you're working on that, I'll show you a pro tip. If you're using a touchscreen device, if you press and hold on your block, you'll get this right-click menu. And you can hit duplicate. The nice part about duplicating is it kept all my same settings from that other block. Now I can just adjust the parameter that I need to adjust. But if I do that again with the top block, it's going to duplicate everything that's below that one as well. So now I could go through and I can make adjustments to those last two blocks to make this my square. Let's go ahead, finish that up. Right, if you're still programming, no worries. I just want to try and make use of our time as best I can here. So I'm going to hit start on my program. I have 4 roll to distance blocks in place, and I think it'll stay on the table. I'm going to just double check. Yeah, there we go. Almost drove it off of there. It's close. All right. So here is my data from my iPad. So we can see my square for my location. Looks good. No issues. That ran really well. I almost drove off the edge of my table, so I was close. I actually gave it just a bump because I was just barely on the tread when I on that the bottom side of my square. So when we're looking at doing these kinds of an activity, these are good getting started activities. Some things you can do beyond the square, which is a great like getting used to this, trying to use the robot, but changing the different shapes that are there, have them trace a path, have them navigate around an obstacle, right? They're going to have to make their adjustments to their code as their path needs adjustments to make sure that the robot can navigate safely and successfully. So this is a great getting started kind of activity. I mentioned synchronous and asynchronous blocks. Synchronous blocks are blocks that execute one command at a time. So once it starts executing that command, it has to finish it before it'll move to the next programming block. Versus asynchronous blocks are blocks that they start and then immediately go to the next code block that's in your program. So if we say speed, it's going to start moving forward, whichever direction it's facing. RVR is going to start moving forward at that speed, and it's going to continue going at that speed until you tell it something different. Okay, so you have to give it a different speed or give it a stop command, whatever it might be. Could you program a square using asynchronous movement blocks? Absolutely, you could do that. Matter of fact, you could program it to do some math inside of your program and only use 4 blocks inside of a loop to have it drive all of those distances and do math. You're like, well, there's only 4 blocks in your program now. Absolutely. But what if I was doing an octagon? Well, then I would need 8 of those drive blocks. And I could actually do it using 5 blocks and just changing my math inside of the program, which is really a fun experiment to do. There are some other synchronous and asynchronous blocks that are available. There's lights and sounds. No, RVR Plus does not have a matrix like Bolt does. It does not have a display on it. So it's just the lights that are on it. But there are a bunch of lights that are here. We have the headlights. We have the left and right headlights. We have the left and right side lights, as well as we have the tail lights that are here. So you can program different things. You can program sequences. You could have it, colors circulating around here, doing some really cool programming with those lights. But you have that there. There's no speaker on RVR Plus, so the sound comes from the programming device. And there's 2 different sound blocks. One is a sound block and one is a speak block. And I just want to point out that with a speak block, whatever the student types into there is what the program is going to say. For those of you that might be thinking about this for a second, I'll repeat it. Whatever the student types into there is what the programming device is going to say. The only way to not have that is to remove those words from the operating system's dictionary. I equate this to a student opening up Word or a Google Doc and doing a text-to-speech command, and their programming device there, that computer, tablet, whatever it might be, would read those words out loud as well. It's not just part of our software. So those are in there. There's tons of sounds. And the cool part about sounds are they can be synchronous or asynchronous. So you can say they're asynchronous here by having them say wait, or you can click continue and they will become synchronous. So a cool challenge for this is add some LED blocks, add some sound blocks, put those roll blocks in, run your program so that Rover changes colors and plays a different sound at every side of the square. They can test and debug this and kind of work through that process. Just a lot of fun. We'll take a look at some of those intermediate blocks and going further using that color sensor when we meet again for our second session. So with that being said, I would love to address any questions that you all might have.
I have a question for you, Brad. When
Sure.
I hit the back button, that program that I've just created, that's saved there. And so
Yep.
when I'm ready to connect to my device, I just have to hit the program, connect, and all of the work that I've done is already there.
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It auto saves to
Okay.
the programming device. If you are logged in with a Sphero, like a username, like a Sphero account of some sort, it will upload that to our accounts. And what will happen is if you switch programming devices, that program will follow you. So right now, my iPad that you're looking at right now is logged in with the same ID my laptop is, as the same as my phone is. So next time I log in to Sphero EDU on those devices, this program will show up on those devices. So it'll synchronize across them, which is very, very helpful. We've all had students that are using devices and they break one or lose it or something, and they have to be provided another device, and that'll come with them. And when you do hit that back button, you will see I have a few programs in my account right now, but you'll see my rover demo is right there. I can open that up, and my program will be right here, ready to go.
Okay.
Great question.
I have a question. Let me come. I'm Activia. Actually, this is amazing. We have a group of what? I think we got 6 of them, right? Did we get
I think
6?
so.
Yeah, because I left
Instead of
my
6.
other ones at school.
Mhm.
How would you recommend? I mean, I could ask in the next session, but how would you recommend using this in your classroom setting? So I'm a STEAM teacher, so I teach all grades. But how would you recommend? I guess with the kids doing them and like waiting, like do you have a certain job for each student when they're coding, or like do you have one coding and then one watching it and reset, or you just have them just watch while they all are?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and there's multiple ways you can approach this. So one is we like to encourage what we call pair programming. So say you're a 2-to-1 ratio, which is that's ideal. That we all know that that's not always realistic in a classroom, but say if you were in that 2-to-1 ratio, you can have one student programming part of the challenge and then another student programming another part of the challenge, or maybe one student programs the whole challenge and then they flip flop, right, and work their way through it, so they're helping each other through the process with that. If you're doing something that's a little more hands-on, where we're building on top of this thing, just because you don't have a blueprint doesn't mean you can't build on top of this thing. You can use craft materials, all kinds of things. I like to do a pretty cool activity that I call balloon popper. Matter of fact, we have versions of it that use little bits. We have versions of it that use blueprint, and we have versions that just use craft materials, where you're building some kind of device on here and you have a balloon on the back of the robot and you're trying to pop each other's balloons, right? So one student could be working on like strategy of how we do this. One student could be working on how do I attach my balloon. Another one could be working on how do I build some kind of device off of this to pop that balloon. So part of that is dependent on what kind of an activity you're working on. The kind of activity we just did today would just be like, hey, let's switch on and off with programming, or I do the first 2 blocks, you do the next 2 blocks. But great question.
Thank you.
I have a question with so we have 6 and we'll have our kids using them in groups, and let's say like every group has their Chromebook. Should I ahead of time like cut each of them on and try to connect them to my computer, like to figure out the names and name them so that they won't
Nope.
mix it up?
Nope, you don't need to, because on the bottom, the name is already printed. The connection ID is printed right here on the bottom of
Okay.
the RVR.
Nice.
So you don't need to worry about any of that.
Okay.
My guess is you've probably used Bolt before because of that question. And
Yeah.
yeah. And Bolt, just FYI, Bolt, they are printed on Bolt. They're just extremely hard to read. It's like gray text on a gray background, which is not great. But these are printed very clearly right on the bottom. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. That's there. And since you're a Bolt user, just FYI, the new Bolt Plus robot, here it is. It's printed on what we call the license plate. It is right there, and it shows up on the display. So there's no more hunting for any of those connection IDs. We really tried to fix that problem.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
All right, folks. Thank you guys so very much. I put in the chat the link to the survey. It is also on the last page of the presentation that I shared with you. So if you missed the link there, you can grab it from there if you want to do it a little bit later, had some time to think. We really want to thank you all for hanging out with our very first session today. If you have questions, you've got Brad's email. I did add Brad your email address to the presentation so that they have it there. You've got Lisa and my email address as well. So questions. We love them. Keeps us busy. And again, if you guys don't have any more questions for Brad or Lisa or myself, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. Oh, that's fantastic, Carrie. Thank you.
Yep, it's great to know. And hopefully you can join us for the second session.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think most of them have signed up for the second session, but spread the word. It's open for anyone. So if you've got some folks that want to come and hang out with us, or our ARCS participants that you're working with, tell them, come join us. I like that. Octavia, play, have fun. That's your
Okay.
enjoy.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I was like, do we have homework? What we
Yeah,
need to
well,
know?
technically your survey, I guess doing the survey is kind of the homework, but
Okay.
yeah.
You don't need to know coming to know actually how to use it and be, like efficient with it. Okay.
No, if you make something cool and you're at the second session, feel free to share.
Yeah.
It'd be cool.
It's to say, and definitely, if you're playing
Can I-
now before the second session, you'll probably have lots of questions for the second session.
Yeah. So if
and
I
you
do
just
that, I can get an extra set of some stuff. I was like, if I do that, can I get an extra set, like 6 more?
I'm just curious, is anyone going to FETC next week?
No, I'm not.
No. Okay. All right. I didn't know with on the East Coast here if we had anyone making the trip to FETC. I was gonna say, if anyone does stop by the Sphero booth and come visit, I'll hook you up with some swag.
We're gonna miss you there this time.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Brad.
Oh, you're welcome. And we'll see everyone on Thursday for our next level 1.
Indy, yeah, we got Indy
And-
level 1, right?
Yep. We'll do some indie stuff. And I'll demo the new code mat. I don't know if any of you have seen the indie code mat at all, but I'll show off the code mat with it. I'll use the very basic side of things, just with the grid, so we can see how that works. But we'll get hands-on with that. And in the second session for RVR Plus, we'll get way more into coding. It's less about how the robot works and more into coding.
Okay. For their certificates, you want to wait till we get to the very end to do them sort of at
That's probably that's probably easiest.
Okay.
Just give me a spreadsheet of who attended what sessions, and I'll put everything together for those certificates and send them your way.
We got it. Thank you so much.
Sounds
Awesome.
good.
All
We'll
right.
see you
problem.
Thursday.
Yes,
We'll see you all
definitely.
Thursday.
That's good to go.
Stay warm.
Yes. All right, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care all.